Welcome to my channel, Edible Thoughts Makes. My name is Stephanie, and this channel is where I share with you my works in progress, finished projects, things I'm cooking up, books I'm reading, funny things my kids may say. My hope is that as you watch this episode and the previous episodes that you find some inspiration along the way. We are in the middle of November, year 2022, and this is episode 96. A warm welcome to all of you, and very warm welcome to anyone experiencing some chilly weather. We are currently in the teens, I believe like 18 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about -8 degrees Celsius, and it is snowing. Oh, it's beautiful snow. It's that kind of snow that's the big flakes that falls gently from the sky, and it's much lower visibility now than it was earlier today. And we've gotten maybe, I would say, a good 2, almost 3 inches now. And it is just beautiful. The roads are terrible, but we managed this morning getting to school. We just have to drive really slowly. But yeah, it is absolutely beautiful outside and a bit chilly. I think it's actually closer to like mid-20s maybe, but because of the wind, it is much chillier. And for me personally, I feel like wind chill factored in is the temperature that you feel, right? I mean, the wind is what's blowing in my face, in my ears, or whatever the case may be. That is the temperature that I feel, not the temperature without wind chill. So I tend to quote the temperature with wind chill factored in because that is the temperature that I feel. I am not standing around with no wind. Anyway, we have wonderful snowy weather, and our forecast, I mean, winter is here. November is usually when winter starts for us anyway, but I think the highs in like the 10-day forecast are maybe 20s, 30s. I don't believe it gets above freezing, and the lows are like teens and into even single digits. And again, that's before wind chill, so they don't tell you the wind chill in the forecast. That is just being told the day of. So yeah, we are in winter. Yeah, I just kind of feel like hunkering down, slowing down, and after a very busy autumn season, it would just be nice to slow things down a little bit. Of course, you know, with the kids' activities in school and things like that, there's not a ton of slowing down to be done, but maybe it's a mindset of slowing down. And if you watched my previous episode, I talked a little bit about this feeling of needing to hurry from one thing to the next, the feeling of having to be on time, and granted, being on time is still very important to me. It's how I manage or come into that mode per se of getting to somewhere on time. And if we are late, like, how do I manage my own stress levels about something like that? If you're not sure what I'm talking about, I would just go back to the previous episode so I don't rehash the entire thing. But I do think for me personally, it is a mindset, and not stressing out myself or everybody else around me. But yeah, I just absolutely love it outside. It is so beautiful. I am coming to you a little bit earlier than usual, and I don't set myself like very set, what is it? Not timeline, very set recording days or recording schedule, that's the word I'm looking for, because life happens and life is important, and I have 2 little kids. My husband and I have a 1st grader and a 4th grader, and it's also the season of people getting sick, and it's stating facts. Like, it is just a busy time. I just give myself the grace and flexibility and freedom to just record when I feel up to it. And in general, I am here like maybe every other week, but today I'm here just a week later because I have some things I need to mail off, and mail off like by the end of this week, and I just wanted to show it to you before I get them out the door. And I have been busy. I have been busy making a lot of things, and so today I probably won't give you an update on all the works in progress from the previous episode, since some of them I really haven't touched on much, but I did want to focus on some new things that I started and some things that I have finished. It's sewn, crochet, and knitting. I want to talk about the sweater that I'm wearing. As of today when I'm recording, it is not released yet, but by the time this episode is published, the pattern will be out into the world, and so I wanted to get a chance to talk about it. In my mug today, I have a Harney & Sons decaf hot cinnamon tea. It is a black tea that has wonderful spices in it so that it's spicy, it's cinnamony, and it is decaf because I can't do a lot of caffeine. Basically, I can do caffeine at, early mornings, and then I can't have any caffeine because I get jittery, I can't sleep, and if I can't sleep, then I'm tired the next day. And then when you're tired, you feel like you want caffeine, but if you have caffeine, you just, well, not you, but me, I just keep going in that cycle. And so basically, it's just no good for me. So I can do decaf, I can do herbal teas, but yeah, I really like this one. Are you a tea or coffee drinker, or both? Do you do caffeine? Do you not do caffeine? What are some of your favorite teas or beverages? I drink hot tea year-round. I mean, I'll do iced tea as well in the summer, but I'll do hot tea in the warmer months as well as the colder months. The first finished project I'd like to share with you is the one that I'm wearing. I'm going to push this chair back. Oopsies. Okay, this is the Fall Frolic sweater. It is a test knit that I did for designer Samantha Guerin. I don't think my chair can go any farther back, so hopefully this whole thing is going to be in frame. You might just not be able to see my head. It is a top-down fingering weight sweater with a colorwork yoke and colorwork on the sleeves. The pattern is written in, I believe, 9 sizes, with the smallest size being a 32-inch chest circumference and the largest size being, I want to say, a 64-inch chest circumference, but don't take my word on that. You'll have to check out Samantha's website and her pattern page for the details, accurate information. But yeah, so she writes it for 2 colors. So you have a main color and then you have a contrast color. And the way the sections are divided up, I had envisioned doing multiple contrast colors. And so that is what I did. So I have 4 contrast colors in the yoke and 3 contrast colors in the sleeve. And I'm going to tell you more about them. So let me just sit down so you can find out more details about this sweater. I used Pearl Soho's linen quill, and if you've been here for a while, you know that it is my choice for fingering weight yarn. I just absolutely love it for garments, and I've made several sweaters out of this yarn. It is also the yarn that is used in Pearl Soho's half and half triangles wrap, which I've also made a few of, and I really like the feel. It's light and airy. It's got a very different quality to it compared to like a 100% superwash merino, for example. This is a non-superwash yarn. Let me see. Do I have, I might have put away some of the tags for it, so I don't have a tag to show you. Usually I like to have a tag to hold up to show you, but I don't have it. It is 50% fine Highland wool, 35% alpaca, and 15% linen. I had to do some math in my head there to make sure my percentages were going to add up to 100. But yes, as I mentioned, it is non-superwash wool. It is 439 yards for 100 grams, and I find it warm but not hot, and it's still very breathable, and it can be drapey, and it's just really comfortable. It may not be the first kind of yarn someone might think of doing color work with, just because I just feel like a lot of color work patterns, you don't usually have like alpaca or linen content in there. Maybe, now I'm not an expert on this, so don't take my word for, I don't know, for everything. But it might not have like the toothiness you might want in color work to like meld together into a very smooth and cohesive fabric, but this works for me. I really like it. It doesn't give you like maybe the crisp definition, like a crisp stitch definition, but I feel like because of the way the color work is done, it still has that stitch definition, and also at the same time it really blends in nicely. All the yarns have that heathered look because of the fiber content, and I used Peach Stone for this main color, which I feel like the color really changes depending on the light. It's kind of a gray brown that can look almost lavender in some lights, or I guess a purple undertone, but it has a lot of color variation in it. It's very subtle though. And while we're on the sleeve, I'll show you this color here that's a yellow ochre-ish color is called Raw Sienna. And then this middle one is Dark Iris. And the one closest to the cuff is Chestnut Red. And then in my yoke, the one closest to the neck is Honey Pink, which is like a warm pinky beige. And then I have Turmeric Yellow, which is a very saturated gold. And then Peony Pink is like the subtlest light pink. And then I have, oh, what is it called? Rosewood Pink, which is like a nice dusty deep mauve. Mauve or mauve? Is it mauve or mauve? Anyway, that color. So I am delighted with how it turned out. I did make a couple of modifications. The first one is in the neckline. I did a fold over neckline. It is written for a tubular cast on, so I just basically knit double the ribbing and then folded it in and knit it to my cast on edge, and I really like that look. It still mimics that look of a tubular cast on because it has that rolled over part, but it also gives it stability by knitting it to the cast on edge. I like how there's a little bit of texture, and I followed the needle size recommendations. For the body hem, I believe she uses the same needle size as the rest of the body main fabric, like the stockinette fabric, but I went down a needle size for that. Just knowing this yarn does better in ribbing by going down a size or two, because I've knit other sweaters with this yarn. That just is my preference, and I think it looks nice like that. I did do the tubular cast off in the sleeves, but I omitted it for the body hem because I did my sleeves first before doing the body, and it looks nice, but honestly for me, I don't feel like it's that big of a difference. I feel like it can make a bigger difference depending on your yarn as well, and just personal preference. This yarn is not particularly round. I want to say it's more like stringy, and so I just don't feel like that look of it being rounded on the edges is as prominent as if you used a rounder yarn. So the hem here, I just did a regular bind off in pattern, and I used 2 needle sizes bigger so that it wouldn't be too tight, and I think it looks really nice. It's a very tidy bind off, and it's still stretchy because I used, which is what I always do, bind off with a double pointed needle that is 2 needle sizes bigger than whatever I used for that part. And I did extend my sleeve length because the pattern's written for bracelet length, and honestly the bracelet length would have ended up 3/4 lengths on me, which I think, being a fingering weight sweater, that would still be very versatile. But knowing that I was going to be completing this sweater in early November and I wanted to wear it through the winter, I just thought it would be nice to have it all the way, super long for my long arms. And also this way I can still pull it up if I want to 3/4 lengths, or I can also fold over the cuffs and make it closer to that bracelet length if I want. There's lots of options. But when it's shorter, I just don't want to end up pulling at it to try to get it longer, or if my wrists are cold or something like that. So I just extended it. And my yardage amount did not go past her estimates in the pattern. And I do not remember how much cushion she gives. A lot of designers will put in a cushion of like 10% for the yardage, since people's gauge can maybe vary a little bit, or depending on what yarn you use, things can be different. And the yarn I used is not the one she used in her sample, but yeah, the amount of yardage I had still came in within her recommended range, not recommended range, recommended amount on the pattern. and I don't think I changed anything else. I think those were all my pretty minor modifications. But I love the fit. There's zero puckering or like waviness in the yoke area, which I feel like sometimes you can see that in some circular yoke patterns because increases might not be spaced out in a way that lays flat on a body. There are short rows in the back underneath the collar, which raises the back slightly for a better fit because we're not straight tubes or rectangular planks. But yeah, I really liked it. I really enjoyed knitting it, and I really enjoy wearing it. I did mention that I was within yardage recommendations or approximations, but I didn't tell you how much I used or what size I knit. Sorry about that. So I knit size 2 for 4 inches of positive ease in the chest circumference. And the amount of main color I used was about, let's see, 226 grams of the main color. This is fingering weight yarn. And then my contrast colors in total came up to be like 20 grams for all of the contrast colors combined. I think her approximation for this size is like 35 grams of contrast color, and the main color, the approximation is 267 grams. So yeah, I came in well under, and again, I don't know what her cushion amount is for the yardage and the grams, but yeah, it worked out really, really well for me, and I love it. Next finished project to share with you is one that I showed you the start of last week. This is my niece's lap blanket that I crocheted her for Christmas. And you may think, oh, Christmas is more than a month away. Well, you know, I want to enjoy the holiday season. I want to be able to spend time with my family and doing things that I want to do and not be stressing out about gifts. And so I do make gifts year-round for birthdays, for holidays, things like that. And I have a basket that I set aside so that as I finish things, they just go in there. And then I tag them, everything is ready to go. But, you know, sometimes things still end up being worked on in October and November, and that's totally fine. But I like to have things pretty cleared off by the time December hits because I want to make whatever I want to make, and I want to be able to enjoy the season. So, this is for my niece. Currently, her favorite colors are blue and teal. So I pulled out all of my yarns that were probably like 50 grams or less, just eyeballing it. And I pulled out all the blue and teals and some kind of light grayish colors. But yeah, I think it turned out really nice. And I wanted it to be more color block striped. So anything that was smaller, I would just divide it into 2 balls and still hold them double. So there's fingering weight held double, there's DK weight, and there's sport weight. And the DK and the sport weight I just held on their own, and the fingering weight I held double. And for the most part, I mean, I have some little ends there to tuck in. But for the most part, when I was joining yarns, I would do a magic knot ball. And you can just Google search or YouTube search a magic knot ball for a tutorial. There's lots of them out there. And basically it's a knot you make that is very, very tight, and you can snip all the way to the knot, but I'm too nervous to do that. So I leave a little bit of the ends in and I just kind of tuck those in to the project. But basically I didn't have any ends to weave in, except for maybe some of those little parts that I could sneak back in. So yeah, that's what I did, and I did end up putting this in the washer and dryer. I used mostly all superwash yarns. Actually, I think they should all be superwash. They're all superwash merinos. There's some, there's one with like 10% cashmere in it. I don't think any of these have silk or anything else, but again, like I mentioned last time, this is a blanket that I want to be used and loved and enjoyed, and I don't want my sister-in-law, you know, being upset or frustrated if it gets dirty, and now how is she supposed to wash it and take care of it? I mean, if you're gonna give a gift to like a 4 or 5-year-old, you want them to be able to use it, and you don't want their parents worrying about them getting it dirty. So I did a test run of it just to make sure it would be fine. I have a hand wash wool cycle on my washing machine. It's on low friction. It's a front loader. I don't remember if my sister-in-law has the same machine, but it doesn't matter. That's what I did, and then I put it in the dryer, tumble dry low, on the lowest, coolest setting possible, and I did want it to kind of fluff up and shrink in a little bit just so the holes wouldn't be as big between the stitches, and between pre-blocking and post-block drying, it might have shrunk like an inch, which is totally fine. Again, it's a lap blanket, so it's not like it has like a sweater fit amount, but I love how it turned out, and I'm sure it'll kind of stretch and change as it gets used. My final dimensions were 25 inches in width, 30 inches in length, and I used 410 grams of yarn total. That is just yarn that I've had remaining from previous projects, and I just loved putting them all into this. I started out with a chain of 102, and I used a J hook or 6mm, because sometimes your starting chain can be too tight and then it just kind of pulls weird. But I think I could have gone away with a 5mm hook instead of 6, because it's a little loose at the end, but honestly it's just fine. And then I did a shell stitch border, and I wasn't too fussy about exact count on that, so my corners might not look, you know, exact or anything, but exact was not what I was going for. I was going for fun and the freedom of just crocheting and making a beautiful blanket. I did kind of follow a general recipe, and I will link to that in the description box below. It's by Repeat Crafter Me. She's been around for ages, and she gave some like numbers, and I think there's a photo tutorial and a video tutorial on there if that's something you're interested in. Oh, and then the rest of it I did all with a 4mm or G hook, and that hook is in here. I really like these clover ones that have like a squishy, not super squishy, but softer than all metal, but silicone handle. This is what I like to use. And I think I ended up doing like 68 rows. I just kind of went until I felt like it was a good, comfortable size to use as a lap blanket. And it's probably okay for her to use it like in the car seat in the car as well. So last time I showed you the bandana cowl that I knit for my niece, the one who's getting the blanket that I just showed you. So I then made the bandana cowl for my nephew. So the bandana cowls are going for their birthdays, and they happen to have birthdays in November and December, I think less than 2 weeks apart from each other. So last time I mentioned that I like to mail all of their stuff at once. Their birthday stuff, their Christmas stuff, all individually packaged and wrapped up within a box so that my sister-in-law can just take everything out and put things where they need to be, hide them in a closet, put things under the Christmas tree, whatever the case may be. But this year, I think what I'm going to do is just mail the birthday stuff first and then mail the Christmas stuff later. I will show you the blanket that I am crocheting for my nephew, and that just won't be done. Well, it could be, but I'm just not going to rush it. So this is the bandana cowl for my nephew for his birthday, and this is Pearl Soho's free pattern. It's the bandana cowl, and they're currently running a knit along for it. It goes through the end of November. Again, this is year 2022. I don't know when you're watching this, but yeah, it's a free pattern. It is really fun to knit. It uses short rows, and the pattern includes the pattern includes instructions for both German short rows and robin turns. And I've done them both ways. Both easy to follow, both end up looking exactly the same. I can't tell which one is which. And since I generally do German short rows for every short row opportunity, I've just continued doing them in German short rows. So Pearl Soho's pattern uses their Plenty yarn, which is an Aran weight yarn, and it uses the full skein, 100 grams. And since my nephew's favorite colors right now are light green and dark green, I was able to use this very light DK held double to make his cowl, and I went down in needle size to a US 9. Pattern uses US 10, and I used up almost 100 grams as well. So I just know that no matter what combination of yarn I'm going to use, I need to have 100 grams. So whether it's holding 3 fingering weights together, which I did for my niece, or holding 2 very light DK weight yarns together, I need 100 grams. So I ended up using, 99 grams. And I believe this gauge actually ended up the same as the pattern gauge, which is 4 stitches for an inch. And it is so nice and drapey. This yarn is the Yarn Collective Bloomsbury DK, 100% superwash merino, and this colorway is moss, and it's just a beautiful tonal green. Oh, I love it. I think he's going to love it too. It's so drapey, and I just love the shaping of it because you don't get this like flippiness on the top part. It's smaller on top than the bottom because of some decreases in shaping, and I love this mitered corner on the bottom. Here's a close-up of it. Hopefully it's showing up okay. Oh, I have so enjoyed knitting these up. This is my 4th one, and I think I have a few more to make for family before I get to my own, because I definitely want at least one, but yeah, I need to get these ones done and out the door before I make my own. And I don't think there's anything else to say about that one. Just double checking here. Yeah. Oh, Pearl Soho also has some great prizes lined up for this knit along, so just check out their website for it. I will have it linked in the description box below this video. And speaking of, I definitely forgot to mention anything about the description box below this video. I don't always remember, and like I mentioned in a previous episode, which I don't remember which one, is that when I do remember to say it in the beginning, I'm so proud of myself because I remember to say it. But basically, what I should have said much earlier is that closed captions are provided. Just click on the CC button, and links to everything that I talk about will be in the description box below this video. Sometimes you need to click on show more. I do use Ravelry for my projects that are knit and crocheted, and those are listed separately, so you can find those there. And I think that's it for that. Okay, I think the rest are sewn finished projects. 2 of them are these book sleeves. Aren't these cute? They don't use up a lot of fabric, so if you are someone who has a lot of just remnant fabrics, or it doesn't even have to be remnants, but personally I love going to the remnant bin at fabric stores because you get a good deal on fabric. A lot of times I don't need a lot of it, and it just seems like a little treasure, like a treasure hunt to find what I want. The danger is buying stuff that you don't need, so don't do that. But if there's something that you have in mind, I feel like it can be so delightful to find what you want. So this one, oh, it's so cute. There's snowmen on it. It's snowing. The snowman's wearing a scarf and earmuffs, and it's snowing today, so it's absolutely perfect. Who wouldn't want to cozy up with a nice book? Now, the reason I started making these, I've made them before, but my daughter, our 4th grader, she often brings a book from home to school. They have reading time, and the books that she brings, they're usually paperbacks, and a lot of times they'll get like dented, and she's someone who's very careful with her books. She doesn't like to leave them like face down open, or she doesn't like the spine cracked or any of that. She likes to keep them really nice. And so I started making her some book sleeves, and she has some seasonal ones, and that way she can just tuck her book in and not worry about it. And so for my nieces and, well, I just have one nephew, but for my several nieces and my nephew, this Christmas I will also be making a lot of these book sleeves because they are all of reading age. The youngest one, well, my youngest niece is like not even a year and a half, so she's not of reading age, so I'll probably make her something else. But she might like a bucket or something to put her toys in, or like a drawstring bag or a zipper bag that she can bring her toys in that my sister-in-law can just throw into her backpack and stuff. I've done that before for other babies, but anyway, side note there. But yes, these book sleeves are super fun. I just use fusible fleece interfacing, and you're essentially sewing these rectangles together. And I'm not going to tell you how to do it. You can also search for that on YouTube. Just search book sleeve. Maybe, if I remember, I'll put a tutorial for one, a link for one in the description box below. But for sure you can look up any of them. They're mostly all the same way to do them. So there's fusible fleece inside this outer layer, and then this inner layer, you can pick whatever coordinating fabric you want to do, and then you just leave a space on the bottom because that's what you're going to use to turn it right side out. And then after you turn it right side out, sew that part closed, you can just iron it back into this shape. I've seen ones that do a zipper on top. I've seen ones that do a snap button on top, or a button and a loop. I just decided to keep it really simple. But yeah, I didn't want to do the zipper thing either because then sometimes it can be really tight depending on how thick of a book they put in. It just seemed easier not to. I don't exactly measure. I mean, I measure like, I'll just take a book, one of my daughter's books, and add a couple inches here and there to all the dimensions for the seam allowance, for the thickness of the book, and that's how I decide how big to make it. But if you look at a tutorial, they will give you exact measurements for those that need exact measurements. But yes, so book sleeves, I will be making more of these. This teal bird pattern, oh, I just love it. I've had this fabric for years, and yeah, I think this is gonna be super fun to gift to my little family members. Next sewn item is right here. This one is for our 4th grader. She's gotten really into crocheting. Both of my kids crochet, but she's gotten really into it, and I decided to make her a little, I mean, it's not just for crochet hooks. It can just be a tool organizer, and you can also find lots of tutorials for this online, but you basically have these little sections where you can stick in these hooks. And on this one, I have a ribbon at the end, and you have no like raw seams, not raw seams, raw edges. Everything is tucked in, everything is tucked inside. And I've seen ones where you can embroider on the size, letter, or number onto each little, why can I not think of what you call these? Pockets? Anyway, you can do that, embroider in all of the sizes on the pockets so that you don't have to take one out to look to see what size it is. I decided not to do that. Somehow on mine I did not measure correctly, or something happened, but my top flap is not as deep as I want it to be. I would like it to be like at least an inch or two deeper. And the purpose of it is so that when you roll it up, everything doesn't fall out. So this works, it still overlaps, but I would like it to be a little bit deeper. And I guess I could do something to make it deeper, like French seam it, since everything's already turned inside out, or outside in. Anyway, I'll think about it. So yes, basically you just fold this top down and then roll it up. Sorry, I cannot roll it up while holding it up, so I'm going to have to roll it up here on the table. But then it keeps the top part enclosed so that all of the hooks do not fall out. And then with the ribbon, there's one that's slightly longer than the other, and then you just kind of roll it around it, wrap it around it, and then tie it off. So I think this will be really nice for her to put into her little craft bin, craft basket, and I think she's going to love it. So this is for Christmas, don't tell her. 2 more finished projects. These are also sewn items. I tried a new to me pattern. Now generally you will know I don't follow patterns, but, well, maybe I didn't use a pattern, but a tutorial. So I didn't exactly follow the dimensions for everything, and I already had my zippers to whatever length they already were, so I just used those and then based my cutting of the fabric around that. But I tried something new. You ready to see it? Ah, it's so cute! These are little gingerbread cookies. And I always do a boxed bottom, so that's not new, but the zipper part. So I don't absolutely love sewing zippers. I know how to use a zipper foot. I am not scared of a zipper foot. I just don't always love sewing zippers, but I think I did a pretty good job with this one. It's very even and straight. And the thing I wanted to try was this like I think it's called like an open wide zipper. So basically the ends of the zipper are not inside, are not tucked in. So let me show you one here. So this one I did zipper tabs at the end, and it looks very tidy, and I love how that looks, but it does make the opening smaller. So then when you open it, like it doesn't open up all the way, right? So see how the ends have like maybe an inch or so, maybe a little less than an inch on each side, where it doesn't open up all the way, which is not a big deal. I still just, open up the bag and fold down the zipper part and use it as like a yarn bowl or yarn bucket, right? But I wanted to try something new. And so I decided to try this open wide, I think that's what it's called, but I will put a link to the tutorial I followed in the description box below this video. Now that pattern or tutorial, however way you want to call it, only does it on one side. I can't remember which side it does it on. Maybe just on the zipper. Anyway, I don't remember. It only has it on one side, so like the other side is enclosed in, but I wanted to try it differently. So I have 2 flaps on each side, and it worked out really well, and I really like how it turned out. You can open the bag all the way up. It's not kind of stuck on the sides, and I just love it. And inside I used like a pink linen cotton fabric, and I have this maroon zipper, and I decided to add a wrist strap on the side. I don't think the pattern has that. I think I made it a little bit too big. Probably could have made it smaller. Oh well, that's okay. It looks cute. But yeah, I really like how it turned out. So after I did that, of course I had to make another one. I had to try it with only one side with the tab thing. I don't know what it's called. One side with the zipper sticking out. So that's what I did, and I love how this one turned out. I had this orange flannel fabric. It's a cotton flannel, orange plaid, and then I put a duck canvas box bottom kind of contrast on the bottom, and I love how it turned out. And this olive green, kind of an army green zipper, and then I had this cotton twill. I don't remember what this is from. I feel like it was from a set of something that was used to wrap something up, like something I would have bought at Target or something, and I just saved it because it's a perfectly good ribbon, and I've used it in a bunch of strappy things on bags. Again, I probably made this one a little too big. Just a little bit, by like 2 inches maybe. Anyway. So the inside, I used this, I think somebody mentioned it was like window pane plaid, or another person mentioned it, I can't remember what it's called. It starts with a T. Tattersall. Tattersall. Is that how you say it? Tattersall plaid. And she had mentioned that it's used a lot in men's shirting, which definitely reminds me of like my husband's work shirts or my dad's work shirts. But I just love how it goes with the plaid on the outside, and oh, it's so cute. This is probably like a 2 skein size project. 2 would be a little squishy, but perfect for like hats and mittens and socks. And the gingerbread cookie one is a little bit smaller. Like I said, I didn't quite follow the numbers in the pattern. I just went with where I felt like cutting. I think for the orange plaid one too, I wanted to follow the lines on the fabric, and so that's what I did. So I think that is it for my finished projects. For my works in progress, I think what I'm going to do is just show you 2 new ones that I have cast on or started since the last time we chatted, or since last week. So this first one, this is for my nephew's blanket for Christmas, and I had mentioned that his favorite colors right now are light green and dark green, and so once again I looked through all of my yarns that were about 50 grams or less that were in shades of green, and then I also picked some grays to be a good neutral in there. So I put a bunch of them in this project bag that I sewed maybe 2 winters ago. I just love the fabric on here. So much fun. So this is a drawstring. And then this fabric I bought as a fat quarter. And so I used it all up between this drawstring bag and then this little zipper pouch. So I put any of the yarns that were like less than 20 grams in this zipper pouch, and then anything bigger in this drawstring one. And then I have both of them housed in this giant bag that I showed last time that I made specifically to hold blanket projects. It's pretty big and very useful. So let me show you what I've got. So this is the start of my nephew's Shades of Green lap blanket. I love it. So there's mossy greens and grays and aquas and grassy greens, chartreuse and Kelly greens and brighter neon-y greens. Oh, it is so good. So I am doing the same thing that I did for my nieces. I did chain on a few extras, I think. Really not enough to make a big difference, I don't think. I don't know why I didn't go bigger, but I think instead of chaining 102, I think I chained 109, which just really gives me 2 more of these triple double crochet parts, which might just give me an extra inch or so, but yeah, that's what I did. And I'll just keep going with it. I love how crochet gives me another rhythm and uses my hand muscles in a different way. And part of the reason why I have a lot of different works in progress going simultaneously is because this way it doesn't tire out my hands or my brain, because I can use different muscles, and it's different when I'm knitting with really small needles versus bigger needles, or holding a crochet hook versus holding knitting needles. And also some projects are more portable than others, and some require more brain space than others. So for me personally, there's different ways to use my time in making stuff, and so having various different projects on hand allows me to use my time in different ways. But I just adore how this blanket is crocheting up, and I am probably halfway through. Yeah, I would say I'm about halfway through. His will be a little bit bigger than his sister's. He's a first grader, she's a preschooler, and yeah, I think he's gonna love it. And for his border, I will use the same green, because I have another skein of this DK weight yarn. I'm going to use the same green to do a border, and I'll probably do like 2 or 3 rounds of single crochet, and then maybe do a double crochet around that, or maybe just leave it at the singles. I don't know. I'll figure it out when I get there. The last project I'm going to share with you today, it is in this blue plaid bag with a denim boxed bottom. I sewed this one maybe 3 years ago, I don't really remember, but this is a pair of socks I'm going to be knitting for my husband for Christmas. Don't tell him. Actually, if you do, it doesn't really matter. He loves them whether or not. It's a surprise, and he sees me working on stuff all the time. Currently, Morgan of Shop Knitting Nelly is hosting a knit along. I think it might have just started, middle of November through the end of December, and it is the Keep It Simple Holiday Knit Along, and I will put that hashtag here on the screen as well as below in the video description box. She says to use self-striping or self-patterning yarn, and you could knit socks or hats or whatever, and it's to keep it simple. I mean, the thought is that, you know, around this time, people are kind of stressed out. There's a lot going on, planning, food, family. There's just a lot of stuff happening, and people are feeling stress of gift making, and so it's a kind of a reminder to keep it simple sometimes. I started these socks for my husband using some of my favorite sock yarn, and this is Patton's Croy Socks. This yarn is sold at like Michael's, Joann's, and for 50 grams, I think It's like $5 or $6, I can't remember, something like that, US dollars. And oftentimes you have a coupon you can use, and it makes for a great price point. It's 75% wool, 25% nylon, and it comes at 166 yards for 50 grams. So I picked up the color, it's called Cascade Colors, and I've wound mine already. And I wound it, so you can actually knit just straight from, you don't have to wind it at all, but I don't like pulling from the center, and then if I pull from the outside, then it's like bouncing around all over the place. So I just decided to hand wind them into balls, and I don't mind at all. I actually enjoy hand winding yarn into balls, as long as it's not like a ton. But yeah, that's what I did. And I have got stitch markers on mine by my friend Maria of Woolen Forest. These are older ones. And so here's the start. This one, oops, I don't know if that's going to show up. Has like a little gem on it, and then this coppery disc with evergreen trees and mountains kind of stamped into it. And then this one is a snowflake with a round gem. I think it's Amazonite. Perfect for this snowy day. So I just barely started, and the needles I am using are US 2s, I believe. US 2, 2.75 millimeters by Chowgu, and I like to knit mine 2 at a time on 9-inch circulars. And I've had people mention like, oh, I wish I could do 9-inch circulars, but I can't. Or, you know, I magic loop because I can't use 9-inch circulars. Honestly, you don't have to use 9-inch circulars. There's no reason to have like an explanation for why you can't use 9-inch circulars, or have a disclaimer for why you don't like 9-inch circular knitting needles. You don't have to like them. You don't even have to try them. I feel like sometimes people get so worked up into thinking they have to like something or have to try something because other people are doing it, and I just feel like that's so not true and a waste of your energy. Don't do it if you don't want to. Some people are perfectly happy using double pointed needles, magic loop method, 2 circular needles, 2 at a time, whatever you want to do. There's so many options, which is amazing, right? There's so many ways to make things that you just need to find what works best for you, and that may even change over time. What worked for you 5 years ago may not be something that works for you 20 years from now, and it's okay. Right now, for me, what works really well are these 9-inch circular Chowgu knitting needles, and knitting my socks 2 at a time in tandem. I don't get second sock syndrome. I always finish my pairs of socks, knock on wood. But unless I, decide I don't like them or something, then I frog them. But knitting them 2 at a time means I end up with a pair when I'm done. And so what I do is, these are knit top down, and so I'll cast them both on at the same time, and then I'll work 2 cuffs at a time. So if I've done 10 rounds on this one, then the next time I'll go 10 rounds on the other one. And I won't start generally on the legs until both cuffs are done. This way, my mindset is also in the same place on both socks at the same time, and then I move on. Also, depending on how long you're working on them, or how long I'm working on them, my tension may change depending on what's going on in my life. So then I end up also with the same fabric in both parts of the sock, I guess you could say, in both socks in the same part. That's what I'm trying to say. Over time, right? So yeah, I really like how this fabric is working up. It might be harder to see in the rib pattern, but the color does change. And it's got a bunch of blues and greens and some beigey taupey colors. And the yarn is not one color. So it's got kind of like a barber pole-y look. Dare I even say hand spun look? I am not a spinner. So, maybe I don't know what I'm talking about, but I really, really like how it looks, and I am a big fan of this yarn. It is definitely a workhorse yarn, and by that I mean that it wears really well over time. And it's still soft but slightly toothy, and it's really comfortable to wear, and it's slightly thicker than like a light, I mean it is thicker than a lightweight fingering yarn, and so I feel like it is warmer than like, you know, it's going to be warmer than a 75-25 superwash merino nylon. And I did pick out a contrast color. I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to do a heel flap and gusset or shadow wrap heel, but I did pick out a contrast color. I think I'm going to do it for the heels and toes. I just decided to knit on it because it's sitting here in my hands. Here is the, I don't think I have a tag in here. Here's the contrast color. I used it previously in another pair of socks, which is why it's divided up in two. I want to say this color is nutmeg, but I don't remember if it's, I think it's West Yorkshire Spinners. Usually I have the tags tucked in to the cake, but this one seems to be missing that. But anyway, I believe this is nutmeg, and I think that's going to look really nice because it's a complementary color to the blue, and being kind of a rusty orange color, it's a complementary color I feel like to the blue and the kind of aqua-y teal, so it's going to be a nice pop. And this West Yorkshire Spinners yarn I feel like is also a great kind of like workhorse yarn, if you will. It wears really well, it's soft yet slightly toothy, and fairly comfortable to wear. So I think that is it for all the projects I have to share with you today. Oh, I'm so glad we got a chance to chat. I have not been reading this past week, but I do have a book I will be starting, and so I'll save that for next time. And there has been plenty of baking, as it has been very chilly around here. The cookies that I showed earlier, I don't really have a recipe for it. I have like a printout, but there's no, it's a really old crinkled up printout, and I have no reference thing on it, and plus I add and subtract things as I go, so nothing's ever the same on there, so I won't be including a link for that. That's the cranberry chocolate chip oatmeal cookies. But basically, if you have a good oatmeal raisin even cookie recipe you like, just sub out the raisins for the dried cranberries, add in some chocolate chips, and you're good. And then the mushroom soup. You know what? I had a base recipe that I was inspired by for it, and I think it was a vegan recipe, and my recipe was not vegan because I used chicken stock. But I will link to that one below because I don't think I strayed too far from it. I don't think there were potatoes in the recipe, and I added potatoes. But anyway, I will include that in there. Maybe you'll find inspiration from it. But other than that, I don't think I have much else to add. I think the next time I'm going to be back here is in 2 weeks, and I'm really excited because we will have gotten, I think, our Christmas tree by then. We always go to this family tree farm near us, and we go pick out and cut down our Christmas tree, and it always smells so good. And so I'm gonna try, not that I'm going to try, I'm going to record some of that and put it in the vlog section for next time, and I think that'll be really fun. So by the time I hop back on here next time, it'll be the last week of November. I don't know if it will be published like early December. I can't remember where December falls. The first day of December, if it's on a Thursday or Friday. So anyway, doesn't matter. That's kind of beside the point. I will be back here in about 2 weeks, and I hope you are doing well. I hope you are staying cozy if it is chilly where you are. As always, take care of yourselves, your neighbors, your loved ones, and cheers to being creative. I will talk to you next time.